Wake Up Filthy. It's a Playboi Carti review. Carti dropped his most recent album, is it Music or I Am Music? I think it's Music. Yesterday, March 14th, which, by the way, side note, is one of my favorite Drake songs, unrelated. But this is hot off the presses. I'm doing this album because why not? Maybe I'll get an engagement and some actual views from Carti fans, maybe in the comments telling me how much of a moron I am. Let me be clear, I am an ardent Carti hater. And I have been one my entire life, and I will be for the rest of my life. So, you know where this is going. I don't have any desire to listen to his substanceless music, and this is the first time I've ever done so for a painstaking 77 minutes. I've heard songs before. Obviously, it's, in pop culture and whatnot, and I've listened to them. I have nothing memorable. I don't pay mind to any of the leaks or any of his older music. This style of music is not even in the same zip code as my preferred music taste, so I really don't have any expectations. I'm not predisposed to this, so this is really, really raw reaction. But I have heard some of his stuff, obviously, in my life, but it's all indistinguishable to me. I couldn't tell you what album it came from or what era he was in or, how vamp he was or whatever. You could play me 5 Carti songs from this album or from any album of his entire discography, and there's an 83% chance that they sound exactly the same. You could probably play 15 of them and they would sound exactly the same. And that's kind of what he's done with his fan base is subject to this hive mind mentality, where everything sounds the same, but it's so catchy and somewhat simplified that it's just really easy to listen to. I cleaned my entire room while I was listening to this album, but I was listening, but I wasn't really, sitting there staring at the ceiling listening to it. I was just focusing on another task, and it wasn't as grueling as I thought it would be. It was still a tough 77 minutes, but it didn't feel like an hour and 17 minutes. He relies heavily on the same sharp, apocalyptic beats, if you will, trap drums. Some of them I don't mind. It gets old quickly. He still hasn't aged out of that signature baby voice, which makes him completely unintelligible and mostly incomprehensible with his lyrics. He sacrifices any of that lyrical importance for a majority of his songs, and then he'll just kind of butt in at some point in the song and very clearly say something vulgar and nonsensical, like cocaine nose. So he just repeats like cocaine nose like 17 times in a row. It's just like terrible. It's just not, but take a step back here. It is music, but it's not, maybe I'm an old head. Maybe it's just not, maybe I'm not young enough to understand this. But in terms of production, I'm a fan of anything produced by Metro. There was one song produced by Metro, from what I remember, of the 30 songs. To me, and this is just my opinion, so don't sue me, but Metro Boomin is like Mike Trout. I thought of this when I finished the album, is a great analogy. He's a guy who is incredibly talented, but to me, he's just forced to be surrounded by these inept morons who don't really allow him to bring out the best of his abilities. So you can't really recognize like his true talent. Maybe if you don't know baseball, think of Paul George or Melo, like guys who have the tools, but they're held back by the teammates and the system that they're stuck in. It's like there's a distinct flair on the song Radar that, it has me somewhat interested, and that's, I can appreciate that from Metro in the production. As for the features, Future is on there. I think there's so many. Future's on there. I don't like Future. Uzi's on there. Don't like Uzi. Travis Scott. I'm a fan of that. But Kendrick, what are you doing, dude? This is just like, oh my god. I refuse to believe that the same guy on Mojo Jojo, whatever that song is called. Mojo Jojo, I refuse to believe that's the same guy who made These Walls and Backdoor. He gets a C plus for good credit. I think that's a decent song. But what are you doing? I've never seen a guy just go completely off the rails, from what he's been in the last decade. I'm a fan of, like I said, I was a fan of the Travis Scott. Nothing really stands out. It's just like kind of like emotionless, and that's how I feel about Travis Scott in general. It's just emotionless. You get a little bit out of it, but after a while, it's just pretty redundant. As extravagant as the production is, like the futuristic, sharp, techie composition, the catchy, oft-repeated lyrics, this kind of music just makes me feel like I'm on antidepressants. Like the whole album is just one big antidepressant. Like it's just so flavorless and oversaturated. I think Carti tries too hard to be this character, and I just don't really buy into it. It's not for me. If my hands are tied and you're forcing me to pick a favorite song, it would probably be Backdoor, minus the Kendrick feature, which is just shameful. I can't believe I'm saying that. Or Radar. Radar and Backdoor are two songs that really stand out to me as outliers in terms of sound. Much more healthy production. It's not just like copy-paste trap drum nonsense. I'm probably forgetting some songs because this is quite a hefty album. I think I like Opium Baby just because it sounds like there's a sound in there. If you listen closely, that kind of sounds like crickets on a summer night. But otherwise, the song is garbage. The song is hot garbage. My least favorite song is the entire album. But if I had to pick one, I mentioned it earlier, Cocaine Nose. Cocaine Nose might genuinely be one of the worst songs I've ever heard in my entire life. It's like the album itself and just the songs are like schizophrenic. They're overly produced, and the trap drum thing is just not for me. It never has been. But I will say I'm a changed man for listening to a Playboi Carti album all the way through for once in my life. I give this album an incredibly generous 5 out of 10. It's tasteless, soulless, overly hyped, and lengthy. But that's not the worst review I've ever given. At least I don't think it is. I don't know. But a 5 out of 10, very generous. I don't think I will ever listen to this again. I do know that some of this will probably become popular, and I know I will be hearing of it. But feel free to crucify me if you disagree.